were being infected by corrupt ideas of independence in southern Nigeria. I mean, there's a whole book of this. It's called, and I think you should read by Richard Binderana. It's called Colonialism and Cultural Change, Education and Cultural Change in Northern Nigeria. It's a fantastic book. You do that and you can understand how a northern elite was brought up on the assumption that got a hierarchical system. Men were superior to women. You know, you got a hierarchy in the classes, and at the top of that hierarchy was a white man. And people actually believe it. Okay, and that is exactly how the system was built. But beyond that, I think we underestimate the real impact of the processes of power. Now we speak in English. You're my daughter, I'm speaking English to you in kind of why? English is a language of the colonial master. Okay, so without even being conscious of it, we act on the role of the colonial subject. Okay, and language is a very powerful medium for control. Now, when you say education in northern Nigeria, you talk about Western education in northern Nigeria. All these evangelists that she talked about, people who are able to read the Quran from the beginning to the end are taken as illiterates in our system. Now, if they were in Egypt or Morocco or Saudi Arabia and they spoke Arabic, they'd be literate. But because we are in a post-colonial, British post-colonial state, Arabic is taken as a non-language. So they've studied the Quran, they've studied Arabic, but they are illiterate. By that definition, by devaluing their education, you have already foreclosed options for them. You're not thinking of why can't they be doctors if they study Arabic? Why can't they study medicine in Arabic? Or Hausa? I mean, I've said that over and over again. We have created distances between people and education. You want to be a medical doctor in China, you learn in Mandarin. You go to Germany, you learn in German. You go to France, you learn in French. Why can't you be a medical doctor taught in Hausa language? Or Yoruba or Igbo? Why not? Okay. Now, so the barrier is linguistic. The second distance I think we've created is this distance where we have this idea that an education can only be in a particular type of space. Now, I've made this point before. I know it's been controversial, but I've said that you do not need a school built formally to have an education. You can do it in a mosque. You can do it in a mosque. And if you take the history of Islam, if you take an Azhar University, if you take Zaytun, if you take Karaway, all these universities were around mosques. Okay. Why is it? I mean, I go to a village and there's a friendly mosque, well built, and there's no school. And I'm told the children cannot go to school because we have not built a school. If you pray Fajr at 5:30, between 5:30 and 2 p.m., that mosque is vacant. The children in that village can come in and have primary education. Why do you need to wait until you can build a primary school? But we teach it. So we created a second distance, apart from language. We created distance in space. The final distance we've created is that we have created a gap between us and technology. The world today is said that on your phone you can learn anything. You give a child a tablet and you can teach it, and you can give him the same education that a child gets on the streets of London. This is what is happening all over the world, in Mexico. So I think it's about thinking out of the box. It's also about making this a priority where we have an evidence-based approach and say what is wrong, what are the barriers we need to track, what are the low-hanging fruits that we can go after.
Can we please
Please only clap if you feel it's something worthy of clapping.
You actually answered two of the questions I was going to ask you, so I'll have to ask another one. So your first point was about the linguistic barrier, and you made me think about Ngugi wa Thiong'o, the Kenyan author who passed away, I think, earlier this year or last year. And I'm just thinking, if we were to follow his theory of using African languages as a medium of communication, and to write, to speak, and just to abandon the colonial languages and stick to our traditional languages, how progressive do you think Northern Nigeria would be in, say, 2030?
I mean, so look, I would never advise that we abandon any language. Okay, I believe in studying languages. Okay, I've spent my time studying English, I've studied French, I've studied Arabic, and I think if I could learn more languages, I would. Language is an important medium for communication, and in the world in which we are, there's no way you can go without what are now called international languages. Okay, you've got, I mean, people are now going to learn Mandarin because of the rising importance of China. Okay, so that is not the point. The point is not about abandoning English. But let's note that the English is a language. It is a language. It is not the language. Okay? So everyone, every Nigerian should speak English. Every Nigerian, if I left to me, every Nigerian should speak English, should speak French, should speak Arabic. And Africa has a triple heritage. I did actually make that point. You've got the heritage of African traditions, you've got the heritage of Islam, you've got the heritage of colonialism and the Christian world. This is something we cannot break away from. It is part of our history. Okay, but it's a strength. However, every study I have looked at by the World Bank, by UNESCO, says that when you teach young people in their mother tongue, they learn fast. You increase the number of years in school. You reduce the dropout rates. Okay, you study agriculture from a village. You've got all the vegetation in your village. You know the names in Hausa. You fail the exam because you don't know the Latin name. For those, I mean, how sensible is that? How reasonable is it? Okay, when you study medicine, you don't speak English to the patient. You just do it. You perform a surgery. You don't use in any particular language. So you can learn. And the question is, if that is a faster way, it's much easier, I think, to teach people to be physicists and mathematicians and doctors in Hausa language in northern Nigeria than to teach English. Many of the teachers have a problem in communicating. So, and people have the courage, and there's some progress. Bayero University has recently concluded the translations of many of the books for primary school and secondary school, mathematics, physics, chemistry. I encourage that. I know the translations have been done. I've been trying to push for a change in educational policy. You can teach them in Hausa and then tell them the English equivalent of those words. They can sit quiet, and when they see the question in English, they know exactly what they've been asked. And they do the translation. And so we need to think, how do we reduce the obstacles before them and fast track their access to that education?
Speaking of obstacles, a lot of people in rural areas believe that sending their girls to school is a waste of time. Don't I ask you to think so?
And it's true. It's not because education is bad in itself, but because we are giving them lousy education. If you send your child to a school and after 6 years they've learned nothing, it's a waste of time. Okay, because we talk about all these millions of out of school children. Have you looked at the number of children who have actually gone through 6 years, 12 years of education, and who are neither literate nor numerate? It's a huge number. So you have children theoretically in school, but out of school. And you can test it, and I've tested this empirically. They know. I'm traveling and I see a line of children. These are from an Islamia school, these are from primary school, and I stop. And I go to an Islamia school and I ask her a question in Arabic. And you're surprised, she knows Ismi, she knows Fiqh, she knows Harf, she knows Fiqh al-Madi, she knows Fiqh al-Mudari. She's able to construct sentences in Arabic, and she's in primary school in Islamia. You go to a child in primary school, how old are you? He's looking at you blankly. He doesn't know, he does not understand. Okay, so there are two things happening here. On the one hand, we are making all this, we're raising hopes of people, thinking that by taking their children to these schools, they're going to be educated, And then they go and waste years and they are not educated. That's what it's about. It's about quality. On the other hand, we have people who are actually learning something, but there is no value because of the English language. Again, this is imperialism at play. So we have just continued, okay, with the mindset of the colonial master. And this is the problem.
So how do you address that in your opinion?
Governance is number one. At the end of the day, every society changes. You rise and fall with the quality of your leadership. And Nigeria has had lousy leadership for a long time. Okay, so until you actually begin to look, we've got people who are themselves uneducated, okay, who don't understand the value of education. You cannot give what you do not have. Okay, you cannot give what you do not have. Until you begin to look at the people who we choose to lead us. And that's the truth. I mean, in most parts of this country, you look at people who are leading you and you say, oh God, you know, is this really the person? Okay, how do we end up here? You see it every day on the newspapers, you see it in the stories, you see what happens in the legislatures, you see the kind of debates that we are having, the kind of arguments that we have, the kind of time we waste on issues that are totally unimportant, the pettiness. Okay, and you say, and you look at other countries, you look at other parts of the world, people are discussing climate change, discussing artificial intelligence. Okay, what are we talking about? Whether you're Yoruba or Igbo or Hausa, Northern or Christian, you know, that is, we are still mired in that debate. We're still in conversations that we had in the 1960s. And what is causing that? The leadership. Because the only ways some of these people, okay, is to make sure we need to look for the right people who think of what generation of Nigerians are they going to create and how can Nigeria rise. I mean, I personally feel I was listening to the gentleman talking about humanizing numbers. And it's true. You said 3 million children out of school. You don't think of them as human beings, but this is somebody's son. It's somebody's daughter. She's going to be somebody's mother. She's on the street without a future. Okay, these are not just numbers, these are human beings. Malnourished children are human beings, they're not statistics. Okay? If you say 50% of children under 5 are malnourished, 50% of human malnutrition, what it does, your brain does not develop. That's the reality. I mean, nutrition happens in the first 1,000 years from conception. The women don't have the right nutrition when they're pregnant. The babies don't have the right nutrition when they're born. The brains are not formed. From day one, you have already disadvantaged your children. So you go to school, and that's why, you know, when we were younger, you'd see a young boy from Borno. Borno, they give them kunigeda, which is nourishing. Here, we give our children koko and barokoro, which is not. Okay? So you go to this Makaranja and you find a child from Borno at the age of 10 years memorized the Quran. And his colleague from Kano cannot read an Kaifa. And you think it's great. He's not that. He just did not have nutrition when he was a baby. That's what. So these are and nutrition is about money. It's about interest about education. Okay. Now one of the issues I'm dealing with is I am concerned. I'm passionate about nutrition because if we don't deal with malnutrition, we will not deal with poor quality education. No matter how good your school is, the brain has to be there for the child to have education. And how do you do malnutrition? We are not there when one is pregnant. You took about statistics. That is what we have. Every year, I get numbers. So many children in Kano State are malnourished. We count them after they are malnourished. Where were we when she got pregnant? Somebody has to be there at the point of pregnancy to say, this is what you need. Somebody has to be there at the point a child is born to say, this is what you need. But I sit here in Kano, I know how many babies are being born every day. So I need the technology. I need to know that in a particular part of Kano, in a particular local government, there are 5 babies who are born, And I need to get the warden to say, go to those women and make sure that they're giving their children what they need. If you don't do that from pregnancy to the third year, you're going to continue producing children who do not have the ability to. So I like the conversation about statistics and numbers. When you just convert them to human beings, then you begin to think, and that's why when he said he can't think of policy, is because he's not following it logically. If you think of this as if you take malnutrition as a number, I think you take it as a pregnant woman, then you know you need a policy around how do you know how many pregnant women are in Kano? How do you know where they are? How do you make sure they eat what they're supposed to eat? When they give birth, how do you make sure the children have what they have? That is how you form policy, by thinking of those numbers as human beings.
I'm just thinking about how it's so sad, but we have so many hospitals in Kano that are very capable of doing these things, and so many doctors. There's Dr. Adisa Galadechi, who I believe is very capable of having these conversations with mothers. But I'm just thinking, Nigeria doesn't itself provide the infrastructure and the space for these conversations to be had. And we have a lot of doctors fleeing the countries. Everybody's jabbering for greener pastures, and we can't blame them because of the reality of the country. So how do we make sure that these things are being taken care of? And how do we keep the doctors in Nigeria to take care of the women who will give birth to these children tomorrow?
So you see, again, listening to you, it brings out one of the principal problems around policy in Nigeria. We're talking about nutrition, you're talking about health. And nutrition problem is not a health problem. And we have treated it as a health problem. So you see, when you look at infant mortality, we treat it as a medical problem. If you break it down, more than 50% is a nutrition problem. This is about what you eat. Okay? It's not about medicine. And because we see it as a medical problem, we don't even have these structures. If you go to every Ministry of Health, you'll find that the head of nutrition is a medical doctor, not a nutritionist. Okay? So you find children dead of diarrhea. Diarrhea does not kill a child. But the child who is malnourished dies when he has diarrhea. Okay? First of all, we need to understand what is the problem we are addressing. Now, if you want to deal with nutrition, I would say we are the national institutions in a place like Kano. We are the best place to do this. Now, one of the things to talk about is that we had I had a conference at Byron University some weeks ago where I put them together and said, look, I want you to do something for me. I would like to have software and technology where I can say, look, this can be done. I did it as a banker with looking at my credit portfolio. I can do it anywhere. I can sit, you can have to, I can sit on my screen. If you have the right data, I can every morning switch on the screen and I will know how many pregnant women are in Kano. And have a distribution by district head, by village head, by ward head. It can be done. I can sit in my office and turn the button and I see there are 5 pregnant women in some village in Chudu. And I will know the name of the village head. And I can give them a call and say, these are the women who are pregnant. Go and make sure they eat social food. Okay. Yeah. They can. You know, if you are villagers, a villager will plant beans, harvest beans, which he needs for nutrition and his children. Take the beans, come to the city and sell the beans, go back to the village and be drinking Coca-Cola and bread, and he thinks that's arrived. You know, these are you talk about vegetables, you're talking about beans, you're talking about these are things we were all, I don't know if anybody was of my age here would remember a time when if your sister or your cousin gets pregnant, you know you're going to enjoy food. Because when she comes home, she eats a particular type of food. There are certain vegetables, zogale, ganye. That's what they eat. This is what nutrition supports. We lost all of them. So this is about training. It's about constant monitoring. It's not something that doctors will do. It's something that we do in neighborhoods, in communities, and to begin to reinvent that cultural practice of eating the right things at the right time. But if we don't deal with that issue, now take the governments, okay? The governments are doing well. So the government of Kano State will say, we're doing school feeding, and it's fantastic. But you do school feeding for a child who is 6. By the time a child is 6 years old, it is too late. It is too late. You need to get that child in his mother's womb. You need to get that child when he's being breastfed. And who is with the mother at that time? It is the village head, it is the ward head, it is the imam, it is the priest. It is not the hospital. It is the father.
We're kind of running out of time, so I have just one more question. If you could leave this audience with one call to action today, what would it be?
I think you did. I think we've talked about this because I was really intrigued when I heard the conversation around statistics and human beings. Okay, and I can only share from my experience in everything I do. In everything I do for each to have value, I ask myself, who is the human being at the end of it? Okay, so look, you have a sister who's going to medical school, and it's expensive. But I keep telling myself, if she qualifies as a doctor and she saves one human life, it is worth all the money that's being spent. So you can't put a pound or dollar or naira sign in front of human life. Okay? And in everything we do, we even when you write, for you writers, when you write your book, when you write your book, what human being are you reaching? How does it affect society? You can write it for fun, but really, for you to be a proper intellectual, you've got to think through who am I writing this book for, and what do I want them to take away from it. So, even technical issues, when I was governor of Central Bank, you deal with numbers like inflation. It's 16%, 20. You know the difference between 8% inflation and 16% inflation is that at 16%, the price of everything doubles in 4 years. So it's not just a number. When you hear that Nigeria inflation is at 30%, please know that every 2-3 years, price of everything is doubling. And therefore, between 2015 and 2019, price of rice doubling. We started from 8,000 naira, you got to 16, you then got to 32, then you got to 64. Because we're just getting numbers. But if you think, as the governor of Central Bank, that if the inflation rate goes beyond a certain level, there will be these millions of people who can afford 3 square meals a day who can no longer eat. It's not just a number. Then it's not just 8 to 16%. It's about the number of human beings who are going hungry because they can no longer afford food. Okay? If you do a payment system, if you're looking at your cards, your card, okay? If that system fails, there could be one Nigerian out in Singapore who went into this card, who is stuck in Ontario and he cannot pay for his hotel because the system has failed. It's not just a card. If that payment system fails, you've got transactions happening. It may be a life-saving transaction with somebody in a hospital. He has somebody in his account. He needs to pay for an emergency surgery and he cannot because the card is not working. So if you think about a human being at the end of what you do, you then put in the diligence and you take the value out of it and get the satisfaction. So when I'm told inflation is down to 8%, I say yes. Why? Because I know. When I'm told this person is working again, I say yes. I know people are able to do that. So, so I think the one thing I would say to each and every one of you is, for everything you do, and you know this, I've told all of you every time that if I've educated you, and all it has resulted in is that you're able to get a job and get a good salary, and then I've wasted my time. Okay. So for each and every one of you who's gone through this education, there are millions of girls in northern Nigeria who do not have that education. And what I want to see is how does that education assist you in opening the doors to make it possible for more of us to come. That's an example.
Thank you so much. So I can take a few questions. I think I saw, yes, one, yeah. I second row. Yeah, yes.
One of the ladies. One of the ladies. No, but she. Let me see.
Here's my simple question. I noticed in most of your responses, there is a kind of historical interrogation on how we arrived at here. And speaking of literacy, what caught my attention really is your point on literacy of the mind. And literary space, I noticed that there is a kind of, not just literary space, there is illiteracy of the mind in Nigerian educational space. For example, probably some of them are here. They will give you 1,000 reasons why they will never read a fiction. So that's just an example. And this particular Philistinism was transported, sadly, years back here in Kano, where a state governor was burning books because they fall under a particular genre of this thing. So I just want to, this particular literacy of the mind and the prevalence of Philistinism among educated Nigerians.
Okay, look, education is the enemy of tyranny. Okay, tyrants do not want people to be educated. Okay, someone said that if you love literature, you can never be indoctrinated because you have your own mind. Okay, so that's where it's now fiction. Now you've got good fiction, you've got lousy fiction, and that's why I was saying to her, you know, if you write it, who are you writing for, and to what end? Okay, there's a lot of great fiction that teaches us about life. Okay, I keep saying when you read Shakespeare, for example, and if you think of it in Platonic terms, and I'm sorry to use Shakespeare as an example, you read Romeo and Juliet, and it tells you about ideal love. Okay, you read Othello, and it is jealousy in the ideal. You read Macbeth, and it tells you about crass ambition, the ideal. You read Julius Caesar, and you see the treachery and betrayal of Brutus. That's all. So it is not just about reading a story. The Merchant of Venice and Greed. You know, it's not about a story. It's about the lessons I take out of that. But it's also the same thing with African literature. There's a lot we have to learn from Chinua Achebe. Okay, and about African culture, but also about value systems. And so where fiction is grounded, and rooted in a value system and seeks to portray a particular worldview, it is extremely useful and should be encouraged. Now, I don't want to talk about what happened in Kano and the Soyaya. I made a comment about that in 2017, and I think I got into a lot of trouble. So I don't want to repeat. The same story. But the reality is, people need to be able to be allowed. You are adults. People should read. People should make up their minds what they want to take, what they want to take, and what they want to. You cannot decide for people what they can read. You cannot control minds. Okay. And the worst thing about stopping publications, it's like Kannywood movies. You say, oh, you don't want Kannywood movies, fine, but your daughter gets on the internet and she can see pornographic movies on her phone. You can't control that. You cannot stop people. So you might as well regulate. You might as well take an approach values, not just where we need to focus.
Leaders that we
Are you looking for a person in healthcare and development? Well, looking for somebody who's going to distribute money for you at election time, okay, and give you, and, basically just keep giving you cash, to spend. You take money and spend it. What is your own priority? Okay. And are we not being selfish as a generation? Are we not looking so much at our comfort and forgetting this generation? Are we debt? Because these are people of the earth. Not invest in the people.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. That's okay. My name is Ahmed, and I have two questions. But before I ask the questions, I want to lay a foundation. You have an impeccable track record that luck enough is not enough to account for. In everything you commit yourself to do full time, you reach the pinnacle of it. In banking, you became you became part of leadership at First Bank, and then ultimately becoming the CBN governor. In academia, you are now PhD. I'm very sure very soon Professor in monarchy, also going through the ranks to become Senkin Kano. My question is, in 2012 and thereabout, when the whole conversation around subsidy and the protest started, I was on the side of pro-subsidy, and in so many ways I didn't agree with your argument for removal of subsidy, but now I know better. And my question is, how are you able to handle misunderstood? Because you are one of the most misunderstood people in Nigeria. How are you able to handle that? And secondly, for a low-key Ahmad that wants to become Sunusi Lamiko Sunusi, of course not Sarkin Kano, but Sunusi the intellectual, what pieces of advice do you have for me to become someone like you? Thank you.
Sorry, I wanted to say something before he answers, and I would like to just tell you a story. I remember when the whole false subsidy thing was starting. I was in secondary school, and my economics teacher told me that it was bad. We shouldn't advocate for removal of soft subsidy, all of that. And I came home, and
in 13, 14, and I came home and I went to him and I said, well, this is what my economics teacher said. I think you're wrong. And he's looking at me as the governor of Central Bank, his 13-year-old girl, telling him that he's wrong to advocate for the removal of false subsidy. And he sat down and he explained why he thought it was necessary, why he thought it was important, and all the ways that Nigeria is going to benefit from the removal. And when he was done, I said, no, the prices were still going to increase and poor people wouldn't be able to afford food, so I don't agree. And who can guess what he did next? Huh? No, he didn't. He was like, okay, you know what, I've tried, so go on, go join the protest, go outside, go stand for what you believe and don't take my word for it. And then I woke up the next day, I got ready, I was so excited to join the protest. And my mother was, when you go back to your room? And that's the end of the story.
So, I'll be very honest with you. Anybody who went to an economics class and who studied economics knows that the fuel subsidy regime was going to bankrupt Nigeria. And let me explain it. We didn't have a subsidy regime. We had what was called a naked hedge, a risk management. That is the worst kind of hedge you can take. Now, what is a subsidy? How does it work? A subsidy, and you're all poets and students of English, is you say, if the price of this product is X, I will pay Y% of it. Okay? I'll pay 20% of it, or I'll pay 30% of it. Okay? And that is when you are subsidizing. Okay? So if it's 100 naira, the government will pay 30. Okay? 30%. A hedge is when you now say to people, there's a cap on the price. Okay? This is a product remember we were importing refined petroleum products. What goes into that price? The global price of oil, the cost of refinery, the exchange rate, the cost of transportation, the interest rate. And you say to Nigerians, the price of oil is going to be 65 naira per liter. It doesn't matter whether the international price of oil is $10 a barrel or $100 a barrel. 200 million Nigerians, you will not pay more than 65 naira a liter. So if the price of oil goes up, who pays the difference? The government. If the exchange rate is devalued, who pays the difference? The government. If the cost of transportation goes up, the government. You've capped it. So you get to a point where landed cost of fuel can be 200 naira per liter and you're paying 65. So the government is saying, I have this unlimited pocket where I will absorb and hedge and basically protect, shield the entire population. Meanwhile, you are an oil-producing country that has allowed your refineries not to work. So this is a product you are importing. So it was always going to bankrupt Nigeria. And for me, it was a simple issue. If you look at the billions and billions that were spent on subsidy, if that money had been spent on refineries, I have nothing against subsidies. If you're subsidizing production, I said it very clearly. My objection is the subsidy on consumption, because we're keeping refineries in Europe open. We're giving jobs to refiners. And if we had taken this in 2012, we would not be where we are today. Now, people say to me, why aren't you talking? I say, what am I to say? This is exactly what I said would happen, because beyond the point, government revenue will not be enough to pay the subsidy. You have to borrow to pay the subsidy. Then you start borrowing to pay back the debt. And you get to a point where it is simply unsustainable. And this is what's happened. And because we did not stop it, when we were about to stop, people came to me and come to me and said, what? I said, I don't know. I don't have a solution. You know, I'm like a man who's telling you, look, slow down, there's a hole in front of you. Slow down, there's a ditch in front of you. That's all I can do. If you fall into the ditch, I can't take you out of it. Okay? But I was telling you to slow down, and you did not. On your second part of your question on so for me, right, I'm a very competitive person. Okay? I want to be the best in everything I do. Okay? That's it. I just can't. Being second for me is never an option. As a banker, if I go on a course, I want to be the top banker. Okay? If when I was in central bank, I wanted to be the best central bank governor in the world. And I was. Okay? When I go to a meeting of emirs, I want to be the best dressed emir. If people are going to watch a Durbar, I want the Kano Durbar to be the best. If you come to the palace, I want the Kano Palace to be the best. I just cannot see myself being second to anyone. Okay, that is who I am. Okay? And that's what I tell my children. You've just got, if you are satisfied with mediocrity, you'll be mediocre. Okay, I just am not satisfied. And I do not take it from my children. They know. Okay. So if you place it as your target, you know, people who, if you are competitive by nature, you are competitive by nature. Okay, and you are always compared to your peers. Okay, but once you strive to be better than everybody else, you will get there. But if you're okay with being average, good luck to you.
Good evening, Your Highness. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous. Growing up, you've always been an icon. I was raised in Lagos, so there's a lot of Hausa. Okay, sorry. What is the area of your dreams? That's all. Thank you.
So, and I'm sorry to disappoint you, because I honestly think in terms of Nigeria as a whole, I find it difficult. I can't pigeonhole myself. Look, I went to a boarding Catholic primary school. Then I went to King's College, and I spent all my life working in Lagos. So what am I? You know, I've spent more time in Lagos than in Kano. So I can't think of Nigeria in terms of an Arewa or a South. I just think that Nigeria is not where it should be. And if Nigeria rises, every part of Nigeria would rise. Okay, now the north is a big problem because of the sheer population in the north. If you've got high levels of poverty in the north, it brings down the country. If you've got insecurity in the north, it brings down the country. So Nigeria is some of its parts. It goes back to where we started, education. If you don't educate the northerner, if you don't create an opportunity for northern youth to rise, the north will continue to lag behind the rest of the country. But then this horizontal inequality also creates its own insecurities. Part of the reason you have insecurity in the north is horizontal inequality. It's the sense that some parts of the country are poorer than others. In some parts of the country, you have poverty of 80%. In other parts, it's much less. And where you have poverty is where you have insecurities, where you have malnutrition. So you've got to deal with education, deal with the economy, invest in industries, create jobs, and that's the only way the North is going to rise. But to be honest, when I speak and when I think about Nigeria as a country, which is why when people say, oh, so much is happening in Lagos, I say, look, if Lagos works, at least one part of Nigeria is working. Okay, next is to say, how do we make Kano work? How do we make Maiduguri work? How do we make Sokoto work? How do we make Port Harcourt work? The solution is not to bring others down. It is how do we raise ourselves? And Lagos is working because Lagos invested in education. And then, you know, a lot of what's happening in Lagos is happening because of the education of people. And if we invest in education, that's where we'll be.
Thank you so much. And with that, we're rounding up. And I hope that everybody goes home thinking, what can I do to make Kano work tomorrow? Thank you.
Please, let's take Mr. Reagan. We are very grateful to
There's no way. I know. No, sure, come on. Salim, lead it now. Oh, hi. Done? Who are these people? Who are these people? Who are these people? My brother, how you doing? You don't tell me say in the post and steady. In the post and steady every day. I was starting to
Okay, so I want to start with an advice. Please, if you are sitting down, look at your left and your right. Ahmad, I advise you to do that because we are not alone. There are other people here. The unseen are with us. There are genes. Make sure you check the feet of the person sitting. Yeah, we are not alone. For me, I've been away since morning. I've been saying a lot of prayers. You know, I'm covered. So, how are you, Nana?
You said?
I said, how are you?
I'm exhausted.
I can tell.
Exhausted.
And I'm going to add a lot of problems because there have been many demands from every quarter that I should put you on the hot seat. So I have co-conspirators. I know you're the gang leader, you're Julius Caesar, and to disappoint you,
you guys are going to stop me in the back.
Yes, your Mark Anthony is now your Dennis Brutus, so be very careful. Yeah. So can you feel your seat? Is it hot enough? You need some water? Should we call the fire service? So the thing is, for many years, she has been the torturer of writers. She's always putting people on the hot seat. I was a victim. Many people in the audience were. So this is, in Hausa, there's something they say, so this is payback time. It's time for us to take our pound of flesh. So I'm going to start with a very simple question. I just want to know, what are you? Are you Are you a human being or a gene? Just tell us, please. The audience are curious.
I'm a human being.
So what kind of human being are you? Are you the type of human being who listens to the whispers of genes? Do you have a gene friend? Because I know that creatives are crazy. They can do anything to get inspiration for their works. And you wrote a book that is about genes, about angels, a very mesmerizing book who people have described as very spellbinding. So how did you do it? I'm sure you have a gene friend or something.
I don't have a gene friend, for the record. I do not communicate with the supernatural. I communicate with humans and humans alone.
Okay. Thank you very much for the response. So I just want to say, first I want to say that this book is the book of the moment. It's a great technical accomplishment. There is a writer I admire, Italo Calvino, and he said something. He said, over-ambitious work may not be acceptable in many fields, but in literature, they are acceptable. In fact, he said that literature remains alive only when poets, writers set themselves goals that are beyond any hope of achievement. And I think you did this. This is a great technical accomplishment. Kabila has said it. I think she deserves a round of applause. Please let's give her a sounding round of applause. So, in 30 seconds, in 1 minute, what is your book about? What? Just tell us.
Well, I mean, I think as authors, we have an idea what a book is about in our head. But ultimately, when it goes out, it's out of our hands and it's open to interpretation. But for me, I believe the whole book is a metaphor, a play on redemption. And I think that's the best way I could describe it.
Well, I remember when I read the book, that is also what came to me. There's something you read in that book, and you know what I'm talking about. The intricate weaving of the stories. And when I got to the end, I shouted. I remember shouting. And I remember looking at it from the prison at which I'm looking at it now. That this is a story of redemption. That is a great.
I'm glad that I made a crazy poet shout. That's an accomplishment.
Thank you very much. So another thing I want to say before we delve into, because I really want to understand your technique, is your book is selling very fast. It's the book of the moment. How do you feel about that as a debut novelist? What defines literary success for you?
Well, I think it's changing, both as a function of time and maybe of change of age. Because earlier the idea of success was to be published traditionally, and I remember before the book came out, I was very nervous. I thought, I wonder if anyone will like it. And it took friends and family members, saying, it's been accepted for publication. Like, it's done. It's coming out whether you like it or not. It's a baby. It's coming, And it might arrive dead on arrival, or it will be healthy and thrive. That's fine. And then because I remember where I was when I was told sold out. I was at Abuja at Spine and Navel, and the co-founder of Spine and Navel was like, Nana, these are the last copies in Nigeria from the first batch. These are the last copies. And we brought in like 1,000 copies thereabout. And these are the last copies in Nigeria. It didn't even register because I was like, oh, you mean the last copies in your bookstore? And it's like, no, they had to pull and get all the copies we could find in Nigeria from the publisher, from other bookstores. And these are the last copy. And I could not believe that in May and by July, was it? No, by June, thereabout, I had sold that. It was incredible.
Yeah, please let's give her a resounding round of applause. That is a great achievement.
But now, to the question, what does success look like? And I don't know if it's a human thing, but I'm looking on to the next thing. And I'm terrified because this feels like, oh, it was well accepted. And I feel like in a way it's affecting my work because I'm now wondering in my head, what if this isn't as good as the first? And so for me now, success has gone back to even being able to rewrite my first draft.
Thank you very much for that response. So I know everyone, like yesterday, Stanzara was here and she recited some lines from the poem she loved very well. Each and every one of us, we have that excellent line, that phrase that we love in the books we read. So for me, I have many, and I remember when I read this your book, there is a line that stood out for me. I wanted this to be the last question that my body is itching. And the line is on the last page of the book, and it is, I'm going to read it. Do not cry for me, it's sweet. Remember me instead. And you know, this reminded me of something I once believed. I once believed that memory is the currency of life. But after reading this, that changed. And for me now, memory is not just the currency of life, but also the currency of death. How did you write this line? Wow. And because I mean, the person who said this, the character, I'm coming to her later, Leila, for me, she's the most, I just loved how you created that character. She's the most compelling character in this book.
You see, I think now the seat is starting to feel hot because it was just a simple line.
Sophia, you can bring fire service.
It was just a simple line for me, really. But I like to think that one of the things I believe, well, when I think of legacy, I don't see legacy in terms of, oh, the children you have, the wealth you accumulate. I see legacy in being remembered by anybody, really, even if it's one person. And I think that at a base level, we as humans, and as always, I don't speak to James, but I would assume that they also will just want to be accepted as a person and remembered for who they are. And so that was what I was trying to portray there.
Oh, thank you. So I think at this point we should have a feel and taste of the book when you should read. And I know you have your favorite part, but I want you to read Amma from the beginning, even if it's a page or 2 pages.
I don't know where my bag is. So Amal, the first story in not so terrible. The first not so terrible person. Rhoda has come to fetch my body, but she's not alone. Next to her, dwarfing her is Alaji's massive frame, enveloped by a sleek sky blue Barbariga. Looking at how ponderous his face is, how he is shaking his head and running his fingers over the unimpressive stubble on his chin, a casual bystander might think him sad over my demise. Confused, maybe. They cannot see what I can, this new innocent view. The palm of his other hand playing on the small of Rhoda's back, shading. I knew he had a thing for her. Just like I always knew he was too good to be true. If only I had listened to the small voice in my head that whispered, "Kate, this man looks dubious. I might still be alive." Not some stone cold dead on a hospital bed. It was him that killed me, by the way, in case it isn't obvious by now. And the reason why is stupendous. See, By the time I finish telling you the story from the very beginning, you too will see why I must return. See why this debt cannot stand, why you cannot collect the soul, at least not yet. If you believe otherwise, when I'm done with my twisty tale, then by Allah, I will let you drag me into my grave and face your inquiry. As you can already attest, I accept that my Lord is Allah. But is that not one of the questions you Lord asked the dead?
Wow. So, please a round of applause for listening. I think this Amal, this story, this not so terrible Amal, is also one of your greatest short stories in this collection. So this is what I feel. There is this writer, he's in the studio of Farsala, and he said a novelist.
I was ready because once you sit with it just keeps calling names and books. But go on.
Yeah, so Julio Cortázar is one of the South American critics. He said that a novelist was to win by points, but a short story writer by knockouts. And when I was reading this book, by the way, Husseini made me to do an experiment to read it from the last story to the beginning, and I saw it was a whole different experience.
Well, I did say that it was designed in such a way that you could read any story and it would still make sense at the end, wherever you end.
Yeah. So what I saw in Amal is from the part you read, you will see that at the very beginning, this is just the first page, you will tell that this is a ghost. This is a dead, not a ghost anyway, but a dead person. And then this dead person is talking to angels. And she's so bold, she's so hilarious, you know. And then there's something you also did there, the cultural spice. I could tell that Amal is in an environment like Kano, even though you did not describe the environment. And I think it takes a great skill to achieve that. So you delivered your knockout at the very beginning, yet the story was very entertaining and interesting till the very end. How did you achieve this technically as a writer? I'm talking about craft.
So one of the ways I enjoy books actually is books that tell me in the beginning what has happened, and then I get to find out as the book goes on why it happened, where it happened, and all that, and the significance of it. And so I say that it's a function of maybe all the books, most of the books I've read, but also the idea to put them together in that way was not done without help. It was from my editors and myself. But just thinking about it, I even think that I didn't set out in the beginning to just write the stories and put them together in that way. I remember Amal being the last story I wrote in the collection. It wasn't even supposed to be in the collection. It was supposed to be like a teaser. When the book comes out, I'll publish it on brittle paper or laundry or somewhere, and then people will read it and be interested in the book. But then my editors read it and they're like, no, this has to be in the book. So I wasn't really, I still am not really invested in Amal, for example. So I don't know. I think that sometimes I get crazy voices in my head and then it just pours out on the sheet.
A little bit genuine pride. But do you have like the book of someone in the jeans, Shams al-Ma'arif or something? Because
he knows the book someone in the jeans and he's asking me if I'm the one who someone did. You see, there's problem.
Yeah. So Amal is a great technical achievement. Like, you know, I'm obsessed with craft, so I asked that question. Then about the interconnectedness of the book, I remember I was saying the book is interconnected, you know, the stories are interwoven. But then I had a discussion with Sophie, and she said something that made perfect sense to me. She talked about the butterfly effect. You know, she said the whole thing, and then I know there are people here in the audience who believe that Amma should not be in the collection. And I'm like, why? This is one of the strong pillars within the collection. Because without Amma moving from where she was and coming to Kano and then meeting Rhoda and then them deciding to start a bookstore, they probably would not have met Al-Haji. That train incident would not have happened. maybe today also do not have been a rabbit. So there is a butterfly effect, Ahmed. There is a butterfly effect to everything. So I will still ask you, how did you do this magic?
I mean, so some of the stories, like I said, they didn't start as me trying to put together interconnected stories. They were scattered pieces from way back 2015 thereabout. And the idea to interconnect them came after rereading Helen Habina's Waiting for an Angel. And yes, I will mention Helen Habina over and over and over again. It's my idol. So reading Waiting for an Angel, and I think it was right after reading Dreams and Assaulted Nightmares, also by Abubakar and Ibrahim. I mean, these writers did it, and look up to them, then I might as well do it. And so I started to have fun with it, really. For me, and I know there is a technical part of writing, but for me, a lot of writing is about feeling, how the music arrives at me. If I don't feel it tingling in my body, I can't write it, unfortunately. No matter how hard I try, it shows, you will see how, where the lyrics are breaking in my writing when I do write them, when I'm not feeling them. So for me, a lot of my, and I know it's bad because work then happens when I don't feel like writing, but it's the risk I have to take for it to be the music that I want to create and produce. So yeah, it wasn't much about craft, it was more about having fun. Like I had fun with the landlady character. I was like, oh, if this was a movie.
I'm coming to that.
Okay.
So that's an interesting thing. We talk about feeling because I also feel that writing should come from the heart. And I feel that your kind of writing is very different. Technical achievement. So it's like what this book does, it belongs to the category of books that excavate the secrets of the soul. For those who have read it,
So far.
they will understand. Because there is a popular saying that novel point us to the most important things in life. So I feel there is like what the Emir said, what is the purpose? I feel there is a message in this book, will come to that. And the beautiful thing is the manner in which you pass the message without actually passing it. The reader is required to allow himself to get immersed, to open his soul so that those secrets in that soul that are related to the message you are passing will come out. So that's a great appreciation and well done for that. Yeah.
So it reminds me of Hemingway, the old man and the sea. I keep saying it. I just wrote a book, but whatever you say the book is about, that's I suppose.
Yes, you don't have a monopoly of interpretation. You can interpret it and see it in the way we see fit. So I also remember that when this book came out at the Spine and Label, I was for a reading, and someone whispered, "What is the genre of this novel?" I believe that it's actually a moving stories. I know it's a whole argument. Yeah. So someone said, "What is the genre?" And I said, "It's speculative fiction." But I think I'm having a rethink. I remember when my book came out, she said, "This is dream realism." Ahmed also, created his own genre. I don't know, I can't remember what he said. So after reading this book, by the advice of Abdurrahim, who said I should read it from the back, from the end to the beginning, I began to think that it is not speculative fiction because this book is multi-layered. We have the physical realm where human beings are living their lives. We have Obunene, Usovehe, Angu, they are living their lives. In their midst, we are having angels, we are having jinns living among humans, but they are plotting. And their plot, this orchestration, whatever they are orchestrating, is going to have impact on the humans and also impact on them and even the destiny of the world as we perceive it. So I came to understand that this is how we are as humans. We believe in the unseen. The most important things to us are intangible. Issues of faith, the concept of nationhood and all that. So I wanted to ask you, or I want to ask you, the story is very real. It's not speculative fiction. So I feel the genre is meta reality or meta realism. That is my own coinage anyway. But what do you feel about
A collection of short stories. Fiction. That's the type.
no? But does it resonate with you? Do you believe like why did you decide to write that kind of story that cuts across the physical, metaphysical, and the spiritual realm?
So, there were a lot of things I was trying to do with the book actually. First is just to share the kind of stories I grew up with. And if you have schooled in northern Nigeria, northwest particularly, I remember being in secondary school and even Islamia, and there are girls and even some boys who all of a sudden grow a voice of the opposite gender, start convulsing or start saying strange things, and they tell us they've been possessed by jinns. These are the real stories that I grew up. And I wanted to just write about them and have fun with it. But then there are also things that struck me. Most of the characters are women, or they are mostly female women because there are other creatures that are women. But for me, the idea was also to place a mirror and show the society or whoever is reading how we treat women or who women are in their very complex and diverse nature. And then the third thing was to touch on, I don't know, I felt some kind of drawing towards the train incident, the train attack, the terrorist attack on the train that happened in Kaduna. For some reason, especially because the doctor lost her life on that train, I was compelled by all means to document it in one way or the other. And so I was forced to, there was no choice, I was given no choice. The stories came to me that way. So was it intentional that I put it all together? No. I believe that the stories jumped out of the cabinet of curiosities, took hold of me, and insisted that they come out. And that's it.
So this is my own theory. I accept what you have said about how the stories came to you. Yeah. But I also feel that because you will see a very distinct and clear structure in the book. And I don't think that is unintentional. So
some part of the book was just showing off. I mean, I wrote in third person, second person, first person. You do that.
yeah, so this is what I'm saying, that there is some intentionality.
Yes,
in
there
that.
is. Even in the way the stories were arranged, there I wanted the book to be an experience. To say that I wanted readers to pick particular things, which for the most part they did, and it was quite intentional. Even the characters themselves, yes, I wrote them, but I had to revisit them over the right and properly put them together, know their origin story, know where they come from, when were they born, what do they like, where do they sleep, what do they eat, what do they want, what's their desire, and then try to answer that question and fit it into the plot of the story.
Oh, I think we should have some reading maybe from Rahila. Let's get to meet Sunday. Yes.
No.
Sophie's with me,
No.
Rahila.
We're running. I know I'm here as a.
No, you are not playing down
I'm
here.
running out
No,
of time.
no. Rahila.
Okay, let's promise that we will not laugh at me.
Don't worry, I will lead the gang of people that will laugh.
What part of? Because Sunday, Rahila is.
You just want to experience Sunday. You said it that he's your favorite character, so let's get to know him.
This is wicked. I don't know where to start.
Where Sunday met Rahila and they began to talk.
Let's see.
I'm supposed to give you tracks for the night.
So, Rahina, when Sunday finally got to the front of her small shop, she looked up once, then returned her gaze to somewhere above his head. She watched the leaves of the mango tree on the other side of the road sway slightly with the wind and wished she was a leaf. That she would be so free to dance with the wind and then fall off and wilt when she chose to. But she was no tree, and she now had a customer. He cleared his throat. Omo,
It's supposed to come from Abuja.
person died. She returned her gaze to him from where she was sitting behind the counter and then shook her head. He even better made the person die, said she used. And truly, wouldn't it have been better to receive news of his death instead of a mere kidnapping? How glorious it would have been to hear of his agonizing death, of his insides cut open, skewered on a spear, or his chest riddled with bullets. Women wicked. Hope say no be that your boy you dey swear for like this. Sunday let out a small chuckle. Rahina considered him and his words, then looked at him, truly looked at him. He wasn't actually bad looking. If only he could try to dress nicely and wash his clothes, especially his underarms, where all his shirts had a tea-colored sweat pattern no detergent could remove. What could not be disputed, however, was that in his own way, he made sense of the world. She could hold a conversation with him no matter how incredulous some of his theories were, and he always had theories. But he not hissed again. Who get time for love? I beg, waiting you define. He scratched his head a bit, leaned on the countertop that then said, I get malaria and typhoid. My body just the hot. You get malaria and typhoid, now you still full ground they stand, Rahina chuckled. You do test, which area doctor tell you say you get typhoid?
Please let's put our hands together for Sunday. So at least I've succeeded in making you read PG. So that's a plus for me. Yeah, so I want to go back to what Helen said about your characters. He said your characters are very real and distinct and very compelling, and he is right. They are all different characters if you look at them, critically. So for me, I'm very interested in Layla, what you did to that character, because
I did to her?
Yes, like there's something you did for the reader, and what you did is that you gradually build the reader's consciousness into accepting the character. So at the beginning, we just see this mysterious landlady. Nobody sees when she comes and when she goes away. And then at the end of the whole book, we realize that she is the single thread that is holding the whole book. Without Layla, there will be no plot, there will be no conspiracy of the angels, Iblis, there will be nothing. This book will not go without Layla. How did you create Layla?
I'm shocked to hear this.
So don't you agree with me?
I'm very shocked to hear this.
Because she's the seer that identified the vessel. That's the central idea of the book.
I mean, I knew she was very important, but like I said, I was having fun with her in the beginning, though. Because I watch a lot of crime thrillers and suspense. I love a good suspense movie, a thriller movie, not to be mistaken with horror, and it's just, I think, the part of, and that's why it's important for me to consume a lot of art in their varieties. And I think just using that to plot it, I had to ask myself, where was it important for her to come, that it will be weighty enough for us to feel and still move the story. So it's not that she's just appearing randomly, but where does she need to appear for her to be felt, for her to be important enough to move the story? So that's what I tried to do with that. And Layla was fantastic, but initially when I began writing her, when she wasn't the landlady, it was just a story about a child bride. And as the host, I do say we need to wrap up very soon.
So I have this question that I have to ask, and I wish Sabuki is here. If Sabuki has gone with the Khalifa.
Why are you trying to set me up?
So, how many minutes do we have? Okay, I think we are fine. So we'll see after discussion through the. Okay, so I think that it's something I saw in the book. You know, the book started with a female. You mentioned that you wanted to write about the issues of women, which I understand. But there's also this central idea, and I think that is also one of the great things you explored. So the book started with a lady, a female who is dead. She is very confident. She's challenging angels. And then it ended with a female angel who leapt and ascended into the skies. You know, she spread her wings and ascended into the skies. So I wanted to ask, is this a reaffirmation of the idea of the sacred feminine? You know, Sabuke yesterday talked about what the Sufis said about, you know, he quoted Ibn Arabi and said, Ibn Arabi said, our love for women brings us closer to God. And I think that is what he's trying to talk about, the idea of the sacred feminine, which is, you know, talking about those qualities of the female archetype: intuitiveness, compassion, creativity. And in all those traditions, like the Sufi tradition, the Surrealist tradition, there is the Surrealists who believe that, you know, women are the cornerstone of the material world, and they are the future of man and his destiny. And the sacred feminine complements the sacred masculine in a way for growth, you know, personally and as a society. So I just want to still ask, is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, so I believe that almost all the problems in this world is because of men. The wars that we're fighting, our sadness, even depression. My idea is to turn the mirror, see what could happen if women are the ones at the forefront of leading redemption, for example. Amal is desperately trying to come back because she needs to set something right. The angel you spoke about is trying to make sure that the rest of the world somehow don't end up in hell. If this thing, that this mission they have could succeed, then the world will be better for it. And which was why I loved one of the panels, the one Hasana was on, Reimagining Peace. I feel like for peace to happen, for peace, liberation, justice to happen and be sustainable, women have to be at the forefront of it. Because when we are the ones who are taught to be observant, to have empathy, to have compassion for people, to find strength in compassion. But look at what men have done, killing babies in their sleep. So yes.
Okay, the men were not, they are not very happy. Ahmed, I think you've got it where you wanted. So I saw that the men in this book, like, the landlady killed her husband, was over here, was turned into a rabbit, and maybe they've eaten him in a stew or something. So I was suspicious of this, and I've gotten the right answer. So I think, yeah, we have Mala Abba, questions from the audience. Ahmed, I'm coming.
Okay, thank you very much. Huge congratulations, Nana. I always call her the elite author of the day. Yeah.
Thank you, my ambassador.
Well, when I first came across this book, something came to mind. I read one interesting book entitled Abu-Salat al-Mufradiyya, written in 133 by Abul Ahad al-Bu'andi. It is a letter of forgiveness. He wrote it, dedicated it to writers generally, where he was interacting with many malaikas, the Rilwan, the different malaikas, the guider of hell, the one of paradise, and everybody of that nature. So something appears, became very obvious to me that this piece of writing is allegorical. So I love the fact that I can relate this book to that of Abul Ala Ibn. And that is why I always love it, because I want it to be written in this way. In a way, it is bringing what is there in our inner minds, questioning some things, or rather bringing out the questions that we have in our minds. But there's something that I want to ask, and it is more of how you have argued that you haven't invested a lot in Anna. So among your characters of this book, which character have you invested a lot on? And how were you able to create these superb characters? You build them, and then you give them this kind of characterization. I'm highly taken aback by that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alpha. I call him my ambassador because everywhere he goes, he's always championing. Go read Not So Terrible People. Now, thank you so much. So the character I've invested a lot in is actually Obinene. And I think I had the greatest fight with Carl, Male Ismail, everybody really, because they felt that the way I wrote it, I first wrote it in third person, that I slowed down the story. And I really wanted to tell her story. I think at the time, it was almost 10,000 words. It was like getting into a novella of its own. And they're like, no, it's slowing down the story. You have to cut it. And I was invested in it because it touched on a lot of subjects I wanted to touch on: child loss, polycystic ovarian syndrome, basically women's sexual and reproductive health rights. And if you know me, that's something I'm big on. But I wrote it, and it took a lot of fights between myself and my readers and editors to get us. We went from third person, second person, first person, cutting down words, putting some back, and ended up with a flimsy diary entries. I still will publish that story the way I want it someday. So that's the story I'm invested in. How do I characterize? Like I said, first of all, I just write whatever is coming to my head. A lot of the craft work comes with rewriting. So when I have the story, which is probably badly punctuated and everything, I read it and look at the character. What can we then make? Since you're out of my head now and you've let me be, what can we make out of you? And I like to do these things with characters to get to know them. Think of them as real human beings and wonder what their life is like. What routine do they have? Who are they? Who are their parents? When were they born? Was there war at the time they were born? How did that affect them? What's the color of their skin? What do they wear? What's their favorite color? So yeah, that helps me get into the character and try to write them in the best way that best depicts them. Thank you.
Okay, so we have Ahmad and Ala Suleiman.
You have answered the question I wanted to ask, but no, I'm getting there. But I'll just make a comment before asking the question. I really like Ogunene and her husband Ozobehe, my lovely Ozobehe, which engineered his metamorphosis into a rabbit. A quote from Sid, from his elusive narrator in Garba Dacascos. He said, when book is written with fidelity, it becomes the source of authors. I think that's what he said. And honestly speaking, I don't know if because I recently read Ike Anya's memoir.
What of Small Things?
No, Small by Small. Yes, and basically he talked about his time at medical school, the 5 branches of medicine. And the stories that took my attention is during his learning and practice in obstetrics, basically about reproductive health. And I find it that in this book, anytime,
the host in me saying should be fast. We have
and I find it in this book, anytime you are talking about reproductive health and this thing, like it was too personal from you and this thing. So I wanted to ask a question regarding how you personally connect to this particular thing, and you have answered that already. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ahmed. Next is Ala Suleiman.
So thank you very much. CD, I still could see the emir seated beside you. You know, you took us through the realm of metaphysics earlier anyway. So I haven't read, outside the title of your book, I haven't read a single one.
I'm no longer talking.
However, according to Professor Abdullah Smith, he says, and I quote, that when you have a new book, don't rush to its content. Discover who the author is, and you must have read half of the book. So knowing who Nana is, I have actually read half of the book. So now to my question. The title, Not So Terrible People, is actually intriguing. I would like to know what message were you trying to convey about human nature through this title? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And yes, it was very, because we did fight, because my editors were like, they are more than just people. I'm like, yeah, it's part of the intrigue, but I really had a thing I wanted to pass with that, which was that there are bad things and good things. I know that, I accept that, but I do not believe that there are bad people and good people only. I believe that good people can do bad things and bad people can do good things, and that there's a lot of gray in between, and that all of us have faltered in one way or another, and that we're not so terrible people. And because the whole book is a metaphor on redemption, then all my characters in the book were complex. None of them was entirely good or bad. Well, some people argue for Alaji Hamisu, but nevertheless, we are all not so terrible people. And I really hope that shines when you read it. Thank you.
I think that's a very important question. I also feel that the book is also a meditation on you know, how will the world be? How will we, you know, interact without evil?
Yeah, yes. Because that's the whole point. The whole plot of the book is that Shaitan, Iblis, is trying to be reborn as human, because Allah forgives humans so that Allah will forgive him. So imagine if Allah forgave Shaitan and we didn't get to go to hell. How will that significantly change our lives? That's just the question I'm asking with the book. And I hope one day you have answers for me.
Okay, thank you very much for that response. So I have a parting gift for you.
I don't like this.
Either or questions.
Either or.
Yeah. Okay. So what is your best time to write? Day or night?
Night.
I like the enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Which you prefer, thinking about characters or story?
Thinking about characters.
Good. Choose between Waiting for an Angel or Travelers. Travelers.
No.
Oh, you have to.
No.
No, you have to. You're committed already. Choose. Don't worry. Hello, it's right here.
But it's recorded. Wow. Sounding like an ambulance. That is unfair.
So if we bring the ambulance because we are getting there.
Measuring time.
No. Choose between Waiting for an Angel or Travelers.
Travelers.
Okay. Kejukolo or Ben Okri. This one is very
Ben Okri.
Okay. Then let's go to poets. Okay, let's go to festivals. How about Fest or Lip Fest?
That's right. Wow. Sorry, Kaba Fest. We have to wrap.
Okay, so the last question, poets, Nasiba Babale or Ismail Bala? Yes, answer. Popular demand.
Oh my
God. Ismail? Yeah. Nasiba Babale or, by the way, who is Rhoda? Anyway, we actually later. Nasiba Babale or Ismail Bala?
I love you, Mala Ismail, for Nasiba.
Thank you very much. It's been such a pleasure having
Okay, this was a hot
conversation.
Thank you. So.
Thank you for your responses and thank you for a very beautiful book. It's a very good book being sold outside for those of us that have read it. We can get it.
Thank you.
Let's give her a very resounding round of applause.
So we reconvene at 7:30. Oh yeah, picture. I keep forgetting. I'm just jumping into post. So we reconvene by 7:30 for our night of music and performance. Thank you. So 7:30, let's go and pray, stretch our legs, grab a bite or two, and let's come back where our headliner, Mr. DK Chukwumerije, will lead the evening of performance and music. See you soon. We have music night.
Welcome to Campus Promotion Clinic. I'll be reading A Shared Language by Abdul Amin. If you are overpowered by the weight of this life, if everything aims at applause, then come, take a seat with me. I too am articulate in the dialect of grief. Rendition by Sadia Abdulaziz. 1952. Although it is night, I sit in the bathroom waiting. Sweat trickles behind my knees, the baby breasts are unlocked. Venetian lights slice up the room, the tiles quiver in pale strips. Then they come, the three seal men with eyes as round as dinner plates and eyelashes like sharpened tiles. They bring the scent of licorice. One sits in the washroom, one on the bathtub, one leans against the door. Can you see it yet? I don't know what to say again. They chuckle, patting their sleek bodies with their hands. Well, maybe next time. And they rise, glittering like pools of ink under moonlight, and vanish. First poetry clinic. I'll be reciting Drowning in Anxiety by Ayatollah Adekunle. So many times I cry myself to sleep,
haunted by these bad days I wish I could skip. I wish the rain could wash away my pain and lift me up from this pit of shame. I keep trying to get rid of my anxieties, but they keep overpowering me. Feels like my flesh and the world deceives me, and there's not a single thing to believe in. Each and every night, my tears get soaked into my pillow, and all I wish for is a better tomorrow. Rendition by Sam. Welcome to Capta's Poetry Clinic. I'll be reading Encyclopedia of Grief by Abdul Jalal and 1. Summon the energy of God and crack my skull open. I promise, it won't make sense of anything written in tears. I crave to comprehend the tongue of my torment, but every time I try, it feels like adding heat to a bonfire. 2. Bandits put a levy on the head of every being in my village. When they came, they slaughtered every man that could not save his family's throat. See, I did not intend to tell you this, but when my people paid my janaza that they obligatory salah. If language had the power to fully express the weight of grief, this poem would have served as another poem for a suicide note.